Hello and welcome to the Somatic Movement and Mindset podcast with me, clinical somatic educator and founder of Total Somatics, Heidi Hadley. The Somatic Movement and Mindset podcast has been designed to help you gain a deeper understanding to how your mind and body work. You will learn about your amazing mind and body and why over time you can feel pain, recurring injuries and poor posture. Within this podcast, I will teach you why this doesn't have to be your future or the norm for you. Would you like to learn how to reduce pain, move freely, and gain a new lease of life? Let's get started. Hello and welcome back. Now, just before we start this episode, I'd like to just share with you that the Total Somatics membership doors are officially open, and they're only going to be open for a few days. So the doors will close on Friday, the 11th of November, 2022. And I won't be opening the Total Somatics membership doors for quite a few months now, because I'm really going to focus on the members, and I'm going to continue to create content for them and be very much present within the membership. So if you'd like to join, please come along, go to totalsomatics.com. Click on the Join Now page, and when you go to the Join Now page, you can find all the details there. So let's get started with today. Okay, now I'd like us to consider today's episode on how we can really safeguard our memory. And this is so important for all of us. And I'd like to share the expression, you're going to know it really, really well, but I want us to think of it in this context today. And that is, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. And so it's really true, isn't it? I mean, let us take that consideration of if you don't use it, you'll lose it, to say exercise. So you know, you're going to be aware that if we don't exercise a great deal and then we bring exercise into our routine, initially everything hurts, doesn't it? You know, it's like, oh, I know exercise is good for me, but I really can feel it the next day. But over the time, if we're consistent and regular with our practice, we find that it gets easier and we get less of that achiness because we're getting stronger. We're building up our stamina. We're building up our muscle strength. And so the same can be said about our brain, because if we don't use our brain, we will start to lose brain power. It will start to affect our cognition, how we think, problem solving, how fast we think, and also recollection of events. So just our overall memory. And so if we don't use our brain, these areas are affected. And what's really interesting is a very recent documentary here in Australia was held, and it was saying that it's revealing for the very first time ever, people's IQs are starting to drop. And they're starting to lower the IQ because people are just much more passive. They look at devices now. People might go, well, you know, there's lots of things you can do on a device to stimulate. That's true, you can. But the research is showing that when it's passive, there's less of the different parts of your brain being worked. We're not developing the art of conversation. We're not learning those social skills, the subconscious skills that we develop, that we know, for example, what's involved with social engagement, how we read people, how we can gauge a situation, if it's safe or not. You see, all of these things overall help not just on our brain power as a whole, but in our mental and emotional well-being. And it's all intertwined here. But you know, there's lots of MRI scans which are considered, for instance, and what they do is they look at the brains of a person before they got dementia, and then they look at their brains after they've died with dementia. And obviously they see that their brain has shrunk. And so what we want to do is understand that we can actually develop practices that will help to increase this process of neuroplasticity, to create this extra healthy awareness and connections in your brain as we age. Because remember that in previous episodes, I've talked about neuroplasticity and how important it is that we keep learning and we keep adopting and developing skills and techniques, because the more that we use our brain, we increase all these neural connections or synapses in our brain. That keeps our brain healthy as we age. And that is what's going to help to create more of these brain cell productions. So it's really important that we continue to spice up and flourish our brain. And what I've got here is I've scribbled down a few tips that I'd like to share with you today on how we can keep our brain healthy as we age. So, for example, could we develop a healthy diet? Could we reduce sugar? And could we reduce alcohol? Because we know sugar and alcohol are really quite detrimental to our overall health and well-being as a whole. Would we encourage ourselves to create physical movement, to move our body every day, just any form of physical exercise? Could we get a good night's sleep? Because when we sleep, and I've mentioned this in previous podcasts, I'm going to share it with you again. I'm always sharing it with clients because I think it's so cool. But when we go to sleep, our brain cells shrink by 60%. And when they shrink by 60%, you have these little channels, like little canals between each of the brain cells. And when we're asleep, a cleaning department comes out. And when it comes out, it's cleaning all those little canals, those gaps around your brain cells. And it's clearing the amyloid, you know, the plaque that we see in MRI scans. When we see a lot of this amyloid, this plaque, that's basically associated with dementia. Well, what happens is when you're asleep, the cleaning department comes in and it cleans the plaques. So can you see why a good night's sleep is actually going to help the cleaning department keep that amyloid plaque production down, and that's going to help to keep our brain healthy as we age. Also, can we keep an eye on your blood pressure, consider your cholesterol, just these sorts of areas just to notice, and monitor your waistline. If it's starting to get a little bit bigger, could we start to bring in some techniques or some habits? Maybe fasting. Fasting's got a lot of research. Maybe that's something that suits you. If it doesn't, find something that's going to suit you just to help maintain a healthy blood pressure, cholesterol levels, and waistline. Also, could you vary your activities and challenges so we can really stimulate your brain? We really want to spice your brain up so that we create that variation. Because we are creatures of habit, aren't we? If you think about it, we do the same things all the time, and we love that. You think of children, what do we do with children? We create routines because we feel safe and comfortable with a routine. But it's good to create a little bit of variation for our brain so that we start to just step out of our comfort zone and get all of these other areas of our brain fired up and thinking, oh, let's have a bit of a challenge. So could you do that? And I'm just going to share something if you're a Total Somatics member, or if you're wanting to join the Total Somatics membership, because remember, it's open at the moment, the doors, and I close on the 11th of November, 2022. But in Total Somatics, I encourage you to listen and follow my audio classes, and I encourage you to mix them up. And this is so we can create something called differentiation. So there are different techniques and different movements that I'll teach you in a class that create something called differentiation. And it's where we change things up to spice up your brain and create variation within your practice. Because if we get stuck on just a few of our favorite classes, that's great. But what it's not doing is challenging and getting different parts of our brain to notice and sense and feel. Because this is why those audio classes are there, because we don't know what we don't know. And so when we do these audio classes, we are getting your brain to sense and feel different areas that for quite some time have probably been on autopilot. That's why you've got muscle tension and tightness, or rigidity in your movements, or a limited depth of breathing. You see, all of these things need to be challenged. We need to just change the habits that we've developed. And so that's why I encourage you, if you are in the Total Somatics membership or you're about to join, create that variety in your practice. We don't want to be sort of stuck in the same little routines, because when we do that, we aren't firing off all these other areas of our brain. And remember, we want to sense and feel and create changes on a daily basis. And so let us think of how we can also train your brain and create something called neurogenesis, which is the production of new brain cells. And I'm sure you'd want to create more brain cells. I certainly do. The more that we can create these new brain cells, it keeps our brain healthy as we age. Now, I want to share a tip with you. One Total Somatics member quite a while ago, and so I'll encourage her if she's happy to do this, and anybody else, please share. But a while ago, she challenged her brain, and then she shared her results within the private group for the Total Somatics members. And what she did is she wanted to boost her brain power and challenge her brain by doing something a bit different. And what she did is she switched from using her dominant hand to her non-dominant hand, and she began to write a few sentences. And it started off a bit scrawly, as if a spider's walked across the page, but she kept practicing over and over and over again. And it was so cool. She showed the first time she wrote in that non-dominant hand, and then she showed at a later date, after several, I think it was a few weeks, after a few weeks, how the handwriting looked lovely. How quickly she started to create these new synapses or neural connections. She started to use the other side or the other hemisphere of her brain. That's how amazing your brain is. So could you do something like that? And if you do, please share it in the Total Somatics Facebook page, because there is a Facebook page for the general public. So if you're in that, please put your picture, if you're drawing or you're writing a picture, or share your account with how things have changed over the weeks. Because it could be that you want to write your name or you want to write a sentence with your non-dominant hand, but maybe you start to eat with your non-dominant hand, or you drink with your non-dominant hand. Maybe you brush your teeth or you brush your hair. All of these things, when we start to just change up the habits that we've created, we're stimulating your brain. We're creating these new neural connections and keeping us really healthy. So please share that within the Total Somatics Facebook group. And also, if you're a Total Somatics member, please share also in the private Facebook group. And also, if that Total Somatics member wants to do it again or wants to share her findings from before, please do, because it was so cool. And I just want people to see that transition and the improvement that comes. It's so cool. It's brilliant. Okay, so really the most effective activities that you can do for your brain is really, really important. And they are the most effective is the ones that we find difficult, because we have to really challenge our brain. We have to really focus. When we do something that's easy, we can almost do it subconsciously. I mean, consider, for example, have you ever driven to work and then you think, oh, hang on, I don't actually remember anything about the journey, because it becomes so automatic. So although that's a bit scary that can happen, can you imagine that when we do something that's not so automatic, or we don't do it so often, it means we have to use more of our brain power to really focus on that. And that's really important to consider. And what I also want to share with you is, if you are a Total Somatics member, I'd like to show how that actually applies to us with our Total Somatics practice, because what can happen is we can just keep doing the things that we like doing in the membership, the movements and the practices. But I'd like to encourage you to do more of what you don't want to do, because what you'll find is those movements are often the ones that we need to do in order to improve our posture, soften the belly of our muscles, to reduce and release that muscle tension. It's also to recalibrate our nervous system. See, sometimes we don't want to go towards those movements because it feels uncomfortable, because it's out of our comfort zone from what we usually do. But it's moving into something that's different is often a way that we start to learn and we grow and we progress. And so I'm encouraging anyone that's in the Total Somatics membership, just explore some of the areas that you might be, oh, I just don't like that one, because it could be that you need more of that. For example, if you're a go, 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 go person, to encourage you to really slow down can be quite a challenge. But when you slow down, it allows your nervous system to reset, recalibrate, repair. And at the same time, you're learning that it's healthy and safe to just pause and rest. And it's less exhausting on you overall, because we don't need, and we don't really want to be operating on this high functioning anxiety all the time. It's not going to serve us well into the future. And so let's look at how we can change things today. But now let's just consider a couple of other points here that I just want to share with you as we come towards the end of this episode. And that is that, could we create any form of movement and exercise each day? It could be walking the dog. It could be watering, and then doing some gardening or something like that. Anything that's going to create movement and rhythm, just to get us out of this sedentary lifestyle. Because all of this exercise, all the research is showing that when we exercise and we move our body each day, it's really helping to improve our short-term memory. Because what happens is exercise boosts a protein called the nerve growth factor. And what it does is it strengthens your brain's neurons, and that's really what then transmits information. So if we can really boost our neurons, that's the way that we're going to start to just, again, create a healthier brain space as we start to age. And you see, exercise plays this really important role, remember, in neurogenesis, the creation of new brain cells. And so what it does is it promotes the growth of brain cells in other areas that we don't really use very often. So that's why when we sort of do some dancing as if nobody's watching, you know, that sort of thing, or we're doing our total somatic movement practice, and it's something that we wouldn't usually do. What we're doing is we're stimulating neurogenesis. We're starting to help improve other parts of our brain that for a while have not really been working too great. And also, I just want to share something with you finally here. Again, if you're a Total Somatics member, this is really important to consider. And that is that within my classes, I'm kind of encouraging you to listen and follow and notice my cues that I'm giving you in these movement classes. And I'm encouraging you to feel these changes in your muscles and your joints and in your emotions and everything within your practice as you're pandiculating and you're releasing this muscle tension. And, you know, that's what's really powerful about this total somatic movement practice, is because when I'm guiding you through these movements, you're using other areas of your brain compared to when you're just doing it on your own. You see, when you're just doing it on your own, you can just go into a bit of a habit, just do the same things. But when you're listening to my cues, I'm encouraging you to notice things. Just pause, slow down. I'm also encouraging you to kind of feel sensations which you may not have noticed before, because if you just live in your head and you love structure and organization, but you're not really noticing how things are truly feeling, that's where, you know, if we're a very organized person, we like that structure, what can happen is we can start to approach our somatic movement practice like, well, we've got to do this, got to do this, this, and this. Whereas in actual fact, your somatic movement practice should be more about sensing, feeling, noticing those sensations. And that's why the cues are so important, because it encourages you to kind of slow down, be vulnerable, allow me to guide you through this practice. So I'm encouraging you to notice things rather than it just being a mechanical exercise of just doing the practice and thinking that's enough to soften it. Because remember, what we're doing is we are changing your brain landscape. We're changing how you're noticing everything internally. And when you start to do this, it's really powerful, because remember, when I'm giving you cues and I'm asking you to notice things, that's where you will start to see shifts and changes. Whereas if you haven't got that guidance and you're just doing it on your own, because a lot of these muscles are in autopilot and they've just gone into a subconscious pattern of behavior and posture, you don't know what needs to be released. You're just going through these movements and these patterns. So can you see why, again, it's really important to have those cues and to have that guidance with the movement classes. So if you are a member, please go back into those movement classes, into the audio classes, and just listen to them and notice that every time you're doing this movement practice, the cues that I'm giving you, this sort of sequential formation of movement that we're doing, all of that is changing your brain landscape. It's creating new brain cells, it's creating new neural connections, everything. It's so cool. And that's what I'm encouraging you to consider, is, again, just follow the cues, allow yourself to just slow down and notice all those little subtle differences and those nuances with your movement practice with me in the Total Somatics membership. So if you want to join me, if you're not already in the membership, go to totalsomatics.com, click on the Join Now page, and you can join the membership. All the details will be on that page when you go to the Join Now page. And what you can also do is just come in and then we will get started. We've got lots within the membership. I will do a membership tour once the membership doors close on the 11th of November, so you feel comfortable with where everything is. And I'm very much available. Once we shut the membership doors, I'm there actively engaged in the group, creating workshops all the time for the members for what they need, and keeping my finger on the pulse with what you need, and also with all the latest in science, movement, neuroscience, somatic movement, the works. So I'm there. But if you're listening to this after the membership doors close, you can still get involved today. If you go to totalsomatics.com, click on the shop page, and you can already purchase digital workshops. There's audio classes, which again, remember, those audio classes will really start to improve neuroplasticity and bioplasticity as we freshen your brain cells, get some nice healthy brain cell production there as we age. You can do that within the Total Somatics shop. So totalsomatics.com, the shop page, if you want to buy some of the classes there, or if you can join before the 11th of November 2022, go to totalsomatics.com and click on the Join Now page. And I will see you all very soon. All my love and best wishes to you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for joining me today. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating and also forward this on to somebody you know will benefit. To learn more about pain relief, plus how to improve your health and well-being, go to totalsomatics.com. Until next time, take care.